Well, first of all, you've never seen this exhibition before. What's your first impression of seeing it here at the Phoenix Art
Well, it's
Museum?
it's it's wonderful. I mean, I was walked through it with a slideshow, so I kind of know what it looked like. But to actually see the costumes is really phenomenal. And they all have such history and resonance, and I love costume, so I can't wait to really kind of digest the whole thing.
How does the costume affect or influence your work as an actress, and how important is it when you're formulating your character?
For me, the collaboration with the costume designer is as important as with the director, because especially with movies, you don't usually have a lot of time to rehearse. So I use the time in a fitting room as the costumer is literally building the dress on you to kind of uh, get into the character, to get into um, it's really from the inside out, from the muslin and the underbindings, right to the finished costume. It's you cannot. It's so important to me that that's why I started my own collection. I couldn't stand the costumes I'd spent so much time in would be rented out and basically, pulled apart and not exist anymore.
And particularly here, looking at the Dangerous Liaisons costume, bringing back kind of all the memories of that very specific partnership. How did that work between you and the costume designer on this particular film, which was so period oriented, and you really needed to utilize that costume to become who you were?
I thought I was lucky that I had done theater, and I had done a number of period things on stage, so I at least knew how to move in them. Dangerous Liaisons was interesting because I'd given birth 7 weeks before I came over to France with my newborn, and so those fittings were probably the most brutal I've had to endure. Uh, my body was forced into first of all, modern girdle, and then a old-fashioned type of corset on top of that. So that was that was pretty unique. But Jim Atchison, who designed these costumes, he got an Oscar for it. He's a perfectionist. And another important thing is you can have a great designer, but if you don't have people who can actually build it, the designer won't really have their vision, at the end. So the two women from Brighton who built my costumes were phenomenal.
That's probably a good way to lose weight too. Breastfeeding and wearing a corset, right, after the baby. All right, so this Hollywood costume exhibition originated at the Victoria and Albert Museum, which unfortunately I know you didn't see. It was sold out for 4 months, and they had tickets going all the way until midnight. And trust me, if they had 4 more months, and if there were 24 hours that they could have shown it, they would have continued to have a line, queue out the door. So obviously this is meaningful to people. They really do care. So how important do you think it is to continue this exhibition and bring it here to Phoenix and share all of these great costumes with fans of film and
Well,
fans of
I
costume?
first want to compliment Deborah Landis. She is the one who really is the engine behind this. It took her 10 years. I think it's very, very important. I think some of our great artists are the designers who have come up with these costumes. I think the word costume sometimes can work against it because we think of a Halloween costume and somehow it's not serious. But there is our designers as great as haute couture designers working in the movie industry. And what they do is very different, but just it's a high art. So I think this will help people appreciate what they're seeing on film, because it seems all very easy, but a lot of thought and a lot of labor has gone into the creation of these costumes. And I'm really happy that it's in this country. One of our great, great exports is movies. And I think people will appreciate movies better if they understand what goes into it. I think real craft, expertise, passion, vision, all of that.
One of the most important costumes apparently was lost. Deborah Landis had told me the story, and she was really devastated by it. It was a Gone with the Wind piece, and it's never been recovered. So when pieces go missing or can no longer be part of, the public consciousness, it's really kind of, sad. And others, as you said, are rented out. So holding on to these treasures, I know it's important to you personally. And how have you been collecting your
I've been
costumes?
collecting my costumes since my first movie, The World According to Garb, and now I have also stage costumes as well. So I have all the costumes from 101 and 102 Dalmatians, and they're unbelievable. They're real works of art. But I also have a sweater from the Big Chill, in the scene where we're all dancing in the kitchen, and I was asked to donate, or for exhibit down at my alma mater, William and Mary. Um, and people said, well, I mean, my husband actually said, he's not in the business, he said, why would people want to see a sweater? And the answer is because they remember the scene. And so you look at something like that, and you remember a scene which is actually now has become quite iconic. And it brings up all these personal connections that you have to a certain movie. And it kind of has a wonderful power about it. So I think that's even, some of these very simple costumes have great power about them.
Well, let's take you. Everybody ready? Okay. So looking at the incredible costumes from Dalmatians,
Yeah.
101 and 102, they look like they are relatively simple garments, but there's a lot of specificity and detail about them. What can you tell us about these particular costumes?
Well, I think these are particularly witty. This is actually the first stage and the last stage of Cruella going back to being Cruella. In the beginning of 102, she's supposedly been cured. She doesn't want fur anymore. So all this is no fur at all, and nothing kind of scary about it. And then she ends up being very hard and shiny with hard shoulders and kind of instruments of torture for her necklace and her bracelet. So the thing that I love about this costume is it was made beaded by hand in New York at Barbara Matera's atelier. And Barbara Matera has made the majority of my costumes, and she was just spectacular. It was like, as a actor interprets a writer's words, somebody like Barbara Matera interprets a designer's drawing and makes it come to life. So, and the thing that's wonderful about this, they did this without a pattern. They there was no something that was all done basically by eye and by hand. And I always made a habit of, when they finished a costume in my final fitting, I'd walk through the workshop so that they could all see their work all done and all together and how it would look in the movie.
Did you find that your personality changed along with Cruella from 1 to 2 with just the simple changes in the costuming?
Well, what, my real personality? No. Yeah, but it all added to her scariness, her hardness.
How do you think that they captured these costumes on the mannequins with the video images that they combined and with the poses that they've used? And did they really capture the essence here at the Phoenix Art Museum?
I think the idea of having the head of the actual actor is really wonderful. I think will also help the people who come to the exhibit to finish off the costume in their mind, to remember the movie that they were from. So yeah, I think it's great. It's a great idea. And the new use of animation.
So here we get to see some costumes from your personal collection. Can you tell us about some of the things that you have in your collection and your goals and hopes with what you will do to share them via exhibition or a book, or what are the plans?
A book would be great. I think I've already lent some pieces to some other museums. The Florence Biennale, they had something from, actually it was a Cruella bustier corset type thing. I have such an appreciation for the personal relationships I've had with these particular designers. Now, this Jeffrey Green dress is such a masterpiece. And we played around with the idea of this bolero. And he actually designed it on me because I have very strong arms and I get very self-conscious about them, like a lot of women do. So this was kind of a wonderful way to cover my arms in a way that was really beautiful. But if you go around the back, it's just perfection, and it's one of my favorite pieces. All these little gatherings here, and all the way he put on the lace. I have quite a few Jeffrey beads, and I think they're all quite unusual. And they, for me, I also remember the event that I wore it to, so it means a lot to me. But I think people who appreciate costume and fashion will get a lot of this. And this is Zac Posen, who I've gotten to know very well in the last years. This actually wasn't designed to have this jacket. It was my idea to put the jacket on it. And I think it actually kind of makes the dress. Because you could open it and you have a whole other silhouette, or you can put it kind of on your shoulders and you have another kind of silhouette. So I like to have something that has a little bit of play in it. And also, if it's not that cold a night, you can, kind of drape it differently. And I love the skirt on this. It just, again, it was kind of unexpected and very, very elegant. Beautiful lines in the dress. And this Armani, we see the back of it, I wore when I was 8 months pregnant, and I wore that to I was nominated for Fatal Attraction. So it was very funny because Michael Douglas and I gave an award together, and I came out hugely pregnant, and Alex Forrest says she's pregnant. So we didn't expect it, but the audience, it was a big, big laugh when I came out pregnant. Very funny. So that was my daughter. She went to the Oscars before she was even born. So,
how many pieces total do you have?
Oh gosh, I think I must have about 500. I have a lot of pieces. A lot of pieces. I have whole wardrobes. I mean, we did a wonderful series called The Sarah Plain and Tall, which is basically the styles in the American Prairie from 1910 to 1916, and very detailed. Van Ramsey designed them, and that's one of his great fortes, the period costume. So that's another thing. I mean, a great way to use the collection would be to have it in schools if they're I think third grades across this country do Sarah Plain and Tall every year, and you could use it that way so they could be closer to how people actually lived and what they wore. So, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
It's a terrific idea.
Yeah, we are.
I like that idea a lot.
Back to the elevator. We'll take you around.
I thought this was really interesting. She wore the 1860s in the movie, and this collection was inspired by the 19th century. And this design in the front echoes that.
Actually, there's some box and the lady.
Yes. I thought it was a very appropriate dress. Yeah. Simple, elegant. Yes.
Oscar.
Yes.
To Lorenzo alone. I think it was Oscar who was like Golden Globe or something. Beautiful. French. Same.
There's tulle and there's organza that has pull for the eyelash effect.